Hey there, and thanks for joining us at Alive Online. This is our Heart Matter series, where we'll discover how to handle matters of the heart and how Jesus' teachings transform us from the inside out. If you have any questions or things that you'd like to discuss regarding this series, you can reach out to us on any of our social media platforms or at info@alivewesleyan.com. We pray these teachings bless you and that they draw you even closer to the heart of God.
My heart is really full for a bunch of reasons today, and one of those reasons is, of course, to be part of a church that has the opportunity to minister in this way. Kind of months ago, we started the plan to begin to minister online, and God knew what He was doing, and so when this crisis hit, Alive was actually ready to be able to have this moment together and be able to do this at this level for however long we need to do it. The other thing that's really neat is I've been blessed this evening as I've been sitting in this room and all the volunteers who bravely came out of quarantine to come and to help pull this service off. You saw some of them on the platform, and then many, of course, were behind the scenes that you haven't seen, and there's two people that are running cameras right now, and all these folks are volunteers who believe so much in the value of the message that's being shared that we needed to work together to get that out. So I'm grateful for that. The other group of people I have to acknowledge is you can't see them either, but several of the staff didn't want me to have to preach to an empty room, and so they have shown up and are sitting around the auditorium right now, so hopefully I will make eye contact with them and we'll have a good experience. So thank you for all of that. That is absolutely wonderful, and I'm grateful for that. So what amazing time this is. I mean, it's been kind of this shock wave, and we've never seemed like kind of doesn't stop coming. They're unprecedented times, and so so much has been disrupted. So our schedules, our social interactions, where we go to eat, all these things have changed. And just a couple of weeks ago, my major gripe was the time change and fear of Friday the 13th, and now everything is different. Now we've experienced quarantine and shutting down businesses and the end of the world decision to cancel March Madness, and that's all new, and it's happened in a short period of time. Well, Alive is trying to respond with wisdom to these new days, and so we have several things that we have done to try to help accommodate. We're doing our services only online through the month of March. That may last longer. That will be dependent on what our leaders in our country dictate and what they would request we do. We're just trying to be very responsible and respond with wisdom. So this will be the format at least for the next 2 weeks, and we'll keep you posted from there. We're going to keep our gatherings as a church of 10 people or less. Several of our small groups are actually larger than that, and so we're encouraging everybody to try to be sensitive to that request from our president that we keep the gatherings down to 10 or less, just to help stop spread whatever might be happening. Also, if you wanted to search on your social medias, hashtag Alive Thrives, we're posting pictures there. We're doing a video teaching an encouraging word every day that we're putting on our social media that you can find by doing and checking out Alive Thrives. The 21 days of prayer weekly prompts are continuing, and so you can also follow those along. So you have the prayer guides and then the devotional thoughts that come as part of that. And then lastly, it's this, is that we're still working and we're strategizing about the best way to help people in the midst of the crisis. And so if there's a need that you have and you just don't know where to turn, or you think the church may be able to help, then we just ask you to send an email to info@alivewesleyan.com. And if we can meet that need, of course, we're going to make sure we do that. So those are kind of what we're doing right now, and we'll keep you posted. We'll communicate as clearly as we can as we move forward. So for the first time in my life, I have faced words like quarantine and business closure, and we've watched this climbing number of people with the COVID-19 virus, and as we listen to the fear mongers share the next news story to try to get us to respond in some kind of emotional way, or they're talking about the shortage of medical supplies and how this quarantine may last, for the next 30 years, and if you're kind of introverted, that sounds like a great idea to me, but some people, they're like, man, that would be terrible, and as you sit somebody who has the sniffles or a cough, and you start wondering if they have it. And then they've shut down the dining area of Chick-fil-A. So this is truly the end of the world as we know it. And we're all sort of feeling that. And so I've been using this word, unprecedented. In fact, I have used that word more than I ever have in my life. And I've rarely ever used that word, primarily because I really wasn't sure what it meant. And so I've been using it a lot in these days, so I thought I should look it up to at least see what it means. So unprecedented, according to the very dependable source of the internet, means this. It means never done or known before. And if that's what the word means, doesn't that fit our current climate? Isn't that exactly where we are? Don't you find yourself entertaining thoughts and ideas that have never been done or never known before, and it puts us a little bit in this freak out mode? We're facing these uncertain and unknown times. However, this isn't actually the first time that's happened for us. It's not the first time that any of us have experienced this never done or known before kinds of parts of life. Unprecedented is actually part of life. It's part of what we do. We have some folks in the Alive community who found out this week that they're pregnant with their first kid. Never done or known before. That is coming your way. You are headed for unprecedented times. We have at least one family in the Alive community, and she's getting ready to kind of pop out twins. Again, never done or known before. Prior to the kind of virus outbreak, we heard that the stock market was actually in unprecedented times for good reasons, like the 401ks were off the charts. And now we're back in unprecedented times because our retirements and 401ks are tanking out. And so these are unprecedented times. This week we had a couple of folks in the Alive community who have experienced a diagnosis that will not clear up after the quarantine time is over. That's unprecedented times. This week we had a few members of the Alive community who experienced chemo for the first time. Unprecedented times. This week we had a few members of the Alive family who were laid off or were experiencing a lessening of their hours at work. Unprecedented times. And we have folks in the Alive community who are experiencing the unprecedented times of grief. And once again, that grief will extend beyond the quarantine time. And all of this has sort of led me to a difficult question in my own heart, my own life, that I think we ought to be willing to look at. And I'm not sure I have all the answers, but I certainly have a good question. And my question is this: does God really provide security in unprecedented times? And I think that's a fair question to ask God. Does God provide security when things are unknown or never experienced before type times? Does he do that? And maybe it'd be helpful to sort of clarify what I mean by that word security, and I'll start by telling you what I don't mean. Security isn't absolute certainty that we will never get sick. That's not security, and that's not real. Security isn't absolute certainty that this quarantine is going to end so our lives are no longer inconvenienced. That's not security. Security isn't absolute confidence and absolute certainty that we'll avoid any repercussions from the COVID-19 virus. That's not security. And if it is, it's not real. Security is not the 401ks are going to be great all the time. That's not real. And these unprecedented times, if they have done anything, they certainly have brought out the places where our things we had put our security in are not lasting. Security can't mean any of those things. And we are not the first, nor will we be the last people to ask the questions of security related to God. The question of where is God when bad things happen is as old as time itself. And yet it's still a question we ask. And one of the treats of having our scriptures is the scriptures are written over a few thousand years. And so the scriptures hold plenty of these historical periods and events that happened when bad things were going on in a culture and God's people and were scared to death. There's all kinds of stories related to that. If you're interested in a place to read some of those stories, you can just start in like Psalms chapter 1 and begin reading about times of crisis and uncertainty and how people respond to those times of crisis and uncertainty. The Psalms is a great place to begin, and so that's where I want to take us for our time together today. The book of Psalms, in the book of Psalms, which some suggest was the hymn book of the Jewish people, there is this special group of songs within the overall incredible group of songs, and this special group of psalms is called the Songs of Ascent. And the Songs of Ascent are Psalms 120 through Psalm 134. And they were written by King David and Solomon and other writers. And the reason they have that name, Songs of Ascent, is people would actually sing those songs as they were heading to Jerusalem to worship in a tradition or a festival or something like that. They would actually sing these songs as they headed to Jerusalem. The reason they're called Songs of Ascent is Jerusalem sat on a hill. And so they had to climb to get to Jerusalem. And it's also said that the high priest would sometimes, as they climbed the stairs to go to offer sacrifices, whatever it might be in the temple, they also would sing these songs of ascent. And so that's kind of where they got their name. What is unique about these psalms for me, and what makes them relevant to, I think, this time that we're kind of going through today, is the theme of the psalms. Because the theme of the Psalms, if you were just to start reading through them, 120 through 134, you'd marvel at how apropos it is to what's going on in these unprecedented times. I'll give you a couple examples. Psalm 121, this is the first verse of the Song of Ascent. I call on the Lord in my distress, and he answers me. It's unprecedented times. Somebody wrote a psalm, and that was their prayer, and how relevant that is today. Just move a couple further. Psalm 124, verse 8. This one. Our help is in the name of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. What would cause a writer to contemplate, where's help coming from today? And isn't that somewhat relevant to us today? And then there's a psalm I want to spend some time with you in. It's Psalm 125. Here are the first kind of two verses of this psalm. So those who trust in the Lord are as secure as Mount Zion or Jerusalem, and they will not be defeated, but will endure forever. Just as the mountains surround Jerusalem, come back to that, so the Lord surrounds his people both now and forever. Now this time, let me read it again, but this time just receive the words in light of these unprecedented times. Let them wash over you. Those who trust in the Lord, those who live the with God life, are as secure as Mount Zion. They'll not be defeated, but they'll actually endure forever. Just as the mountains surround Jerusalem, so the Lord surrounds his people, both now and forever. There's a couple of awesome word pictures here that you may not be aware of if you're not into kind of the geography of Jerusalem, which I wouldn't judge you for. But Jerusalem was kind of this safe city because of its geography, and it sat on this hill, and it was actually surrounded by hills. And so it was this protected fortress geographically. And like you could see anybody coming because of how you were located. So for the people of the day, when they used the words Mount Zion or Jerusalem, that was the safest place they knew. That was the most secure place they had. When they thought of Jerusalem, they felt secure, they felt comfort, they felt safe. This was the safest place they knew. And in the ancient world, being in Jerusalem was the safest place to be. Being in Jerusalem was on top of that mountain was the most secure place to be. And the opposite would also be true. Being outside of the city was one of the most unsafe places to be. It would be a place that you would not feel very secure. And that's something we're all familiar with today, even as you're listening to the sound of my voice. We all have this sense that we're outside the city. We all manufacture things to kind of make us safe. We've done that. We have jobs and we have finances, and hopefully we have good health, or we have strong relationships and strong community, and we're trying to build these safe cities in our lives, and safe cities for marriages and friendships and our children and our families. And that's a pretty natural thing to be. Psychologists say individuals form these elaborate security systems and defense mechanisms so we feel safe. And that's true. And what happens in unprecedented times like this is our elaborate defense mechanisms and security systems are cracking. And we no longer feel safe. We realize that some of the things we have put our safety and security in are actually vulnerable. People living the with God life that we've been talking about at Alive for the past few weeks aren't immune from the need for security and protection. We have that need just as much as anyone else does. We want to feel safe and secure. People that are living the with God life have felt themselves rattled over the last couple of weeks because it's been revealed the things that we thought made us safe and secure are vulnerable or don't make us safe and secure. But what is the difference that people have that are living the with God life? Is that we actually don't have to build any elaborate system for our protection or our defense. We actually don't have to create our own little safe cities where we can be secure. People living the with God life actually don't need to live each day looking over their shoulders out of fear of what might be coming. People living the with God life, we are learning in these unprecedented times, don't have to wonder if someone will get sick. We don't have to wonder when we'll go back to work. We don't have to wonder when the quarantine time would be lifted. Because, according to the psalmist, we are as secure as a mountain. Not just any mountain, but the mountain of God, Mount Zion, Jerusalem itself. That's how safe we are in the with God life. If you jump forward just a couple of Psalms, this is Psalm 139:5. It's a beautiful picture to me. Speaking of God, he says, God, you go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Isn't that an incredible picture for unprecedented times? Again, let me read it, and this time receive it in light of all the circumstances in our lives, in light of all the news reports you might have read or heard today. Let me read it again. God, you go before me and follow me. In other words, you have my front and you got my back. And you place your hand of blessing on my head. That's the with God life. And it's not just Old Testament stuff. You remember and when Jesus is getting ready to be arrested, he's actually getting ready to die on the cross and all that. John 17, he prays for us. It's one of those beautiful treasures of Scripture that we have what's called the high priestly prayer, where Jesus prays for his people who are going to face unprecedented times because he's no longer going to be with them. And this is what he prayed. This is what Jesus prayed to God the Father. They, us, the people, are staying in this world, but I'm coming to you. Holy Father, now protect them by the power of your name, so that they will be united just as we are. That's what Jesus prayed for us. So here's a cool thought. When you realize that Jesus prayed that for us, isn't there a little bit of confidence? Well, hey, that might actually happen. Because Jesus prayed that on our behalf. How could we possibly not be secure if this was what Jesus, the Son of God, asked for from his Father and when he was thinking about us? And you may find yourself, even up to this point in the message, of agreeing with me so far. You may agree with me in principle, but isn't it true that we can sometimes know what is right but still feel anxious? We're still uncertain in unprecedented times. I can still feel my insecurity rising, and I hate it, just to be honest, because I feel like as a person who's living the with God life, I should always have this kind of firm, robust faith that never shakes or never gets rattled, but my emotions can start taking over of how I process things and how I'm interpreting information. And so even though I am living a with God life, I can find myself worried and sleepless nights and not at peace. And anxiousness, can lead people down bad, dark roads. It can lead to depression and fear and doubt. And when we're forced to be alone, those things just grow into bigger giants than they really are. And we see that all around us. And some days we don't just see it around us. Some days we, living the with God life, actually see it in the mirror. And if you do, welcome to normal. Welcome to normal. It doesn't mean your with God life is broken. It means you're normal. Sometimes we can feel like we're in some cosmic yo-yo pattern of being up and then being down, of being toyed around. Confident faith one day and then persistent fear the next. Full confident belief one day and then anxious insecurity the next. The psalmist says that people living the with God life are a rock solid mountain and nothing can move it. But I don't always feel like a mountain. And I often feel like I'm being moved. And I feel some of that in these unprecedented times. I can be full of faith one day and then doubt the next. And the people of God, the psalmists, they felt the exact same thing. You can read it in Scripture. There's all kinds of stories. They're up one day and down the next. One day they're in slavery, moaning and groaning, and then God helps them cross the Red Sea, up and down. Then they're out of slavery and they're finally no longer making bricks, and then they get upset by what they have to eat in the wilderness. So God provides for them something to eat. They're up one day because they've just conquered Jericho in dramatic fashion, and then they're down as they partied in their sin with the Canaanites at a fertility shrine. One day in their presence of Jesus in the upper room, and they're caught up in the rapture of his glory and the beauty of the moment, and then the next they're cursing him in the courtyard as if they've never known him. It's part of living the with God life. But through Scripture, even as we see the ups and downs of the people of God, there is something that is solid and steady, even as life goes up and down. And it's something that I find myself drawn to and finding new confidence in these days of unprecedented times. There is this underlying comfort and security in the pages of Scripture that comes at the strangest of times for the people in Scripture. There's this rock-steady truth that allowed them to face times of doubt and fear and insecurity and worry. And I think it's important in these unprecedented times that we grasp it and own it. And here's what it was. They understood and they knew they were God's people. It wasn't a confidence in what people were able to do. It wasn't a confidence in what finances we were able to manufacture and what jobs we had and the safety of our family and the health that our families have. The confidence was they knew whose they were. And they were God's people. If you live the with God life, you are God's people. God is steadfastly with you, and he ain't going anywhere. He is with you in mercy, he is with you in comfort, and he is insistently gracious and understanding. And part of the security we have in this with God life is we can be sure, confident, absolute that everything that is happening around us is done in the sure, certain environment of a God who redeems his people. And as we learn that, as we lean into it, as it becomes part of our identity, we learn the valuable lesson of faith. One that I think might only be learned in hardship. I don't know. But we learn to live not by our feelings about God or about the threat or feelings about the insecurity, but we learn to live by the facts of God and who God is. We refuse to believe our depression or our anxieties, and we choose to believe in God. Feelings are important for all kinds of things. They're essential and valuable, but they are not trustworthy to evaluate one's relationship to God and how he cares for you. Our security comes from a God who is, not from how I feel. And in these days, unprecedented days, your security comes from a God who is, not how I feel. Discipleship is really living the with God life in a decision to live by what we know about God, not by what we feel about God, ourselves, or our neighbors at any given moment. If you're going to live the with God life by what you feel, you are in for a long haul and a difficult time. Because sometimes in this world, and these last 2 weeks have certainly been these times, we don't feel secure. And yet God has us in the palm of his hand, and we are as safe and secure as Mount Zion. It's not just my emotions, though, that sort of boggle things up for me in these times. But there's also this sense of pain and insecurity of people I love and people around me. I carry some of that today, and probably you do too. Why does God allow this to happen? Not just a virus, but health or hurt or loss or grief, whatever. Are y'all familiar with the story of the sword of Damocles? It's kind of a legend, apocryphal type story. And according to the story, Damocles is having this conversation with King Dionysus. And the conversation is basically Damocles saying to Dionysus, hey, it must be awesome to be you. It must be awesome to be king. Because you're all powerful, you sit on this amazing throne, and you are surrounded by all this power and all this beauty and all this kind of richness. And so King Dionysus offers to switch places with Damocles for one day. And Damocles jumps at the opportunity. And so they do. They switch places for a day, and Damocles goes and he takes over. He sits on the throne, and he's sitting on the throne, and for a day, he is king, surrounded by all the opulence and all the stuff involved in that, and he's the one in charge. And then he looks above his head. And before King Dionysus had left the throne, he hung this huge sword above the throne, and he suspended it by a single horsehair. And what Dionysus was trying to teach Damocles was this, that even though you're king, you're ever watchful in fear and anxiety for what dangers might be coming your way. Anyone else feel a little bit like that today? Like we're sitting here with a huge sword above our heads, suspended by a horsehair. I really don't even know what a horsehair is, but something skinny, I'm sure. Because that's what the psalmist felt when he wrote our psalm, Psalm 125. And it's one of the reasons I'm drawn to this psalm. Because the psalmist doesn't whistle a happy tune and stick his head in the sand and pretend everything's going to be great. The psalmist faces what is going on, and then he points to the hope. The wicked, he says, will not rule the land of the godly. He's not pretending the wicked aren't there. He's saying the wicked will not rule the land of the godly. And I love that verse because there is wickedness in the land. There is viruses there around. There is a virus around us. There is a reality that we're in quarantine. There is a reality that we shouldn't be gathering together in large groups. And yet, despite what is around us, The psalmist reminds us that nothing has the power to take over God's agenda for his people. It will not rule godly people. Nothing can cancel God's purposes that are even now being worked out. To an outsider, maybe it often looked like God's people would be defeated, from Pharaohs to Philistines, from Assyrians to the Persians. But inside, in the with God life, there is no compromise to what we believe. God still rules. And the wicked, the fear-producing, will not. Danger and fear are never too much for faith out of the with God life. Evil is always temporary, and the worst does not last. Nothing counter to God's plan has any eternity in it. Paul said it this way. This is from the Message paraphrase. He said, no test or temptation that comes your way is beyond the course of what others have had to face. All you need to remember is God will never let you down. He'll never let you be pushed past your limit. He'll always be there to help you come through it. So, my summation is this. Do we feel secure in God? Two things. In these unprecedented times, I don't trust what I feel, I trust who I know. In these unprecedented times, I don't trust what I feel, I trust who I know. The second thing is this. The danger today is temporary. The relationship I have is eternal. I am too old to remember holding my dad or my mom's hand. That's not something I have anymore. I mean, maybe one day I'll feel it again. Maybe in heaven we'll reenact it. I don't know. But right now, I can't remember that. However, I can remember holding the hand of my children. And so I would recall, and this is a picture I often think of when my relationship to God and in light of security, and you go to a busy parking lot and you get your little toddler kid who's just learned to walk out of the car, and you reach your hand down and they reach their hand up and you hold their hand and you lead them through all the pitfalls and all the fears of a busy parking lot. And a little kid scared to death because they can't see over a bumper. All these weird sounds and noises flying all around them because a trip in the parking lot for a little kid counts as unprecedented. And so the little kid goes with you. Why? Not because of what they're feeling, but because of who they know. Dad's got me. Dad's got me. And even today, a little kid going across the parking lot, you go to your shop and you get ready to get back out in the car and you face that parking lot again, and the kid reaches his hand up and he grabs a hold of the dad's hand one more time. Why? Because that danger is only temporary, but that relationship's going to be eternal. I think that's a pretty good picture of our relationship to God in these unprecedented times. So, how do we do this and not go crazy? How can we do our quarantined time and not come out the other side more aware of the with God life? So I just put together, kind of to end our time together, some suggestions for you to consider as you're living in your quarantine time. You can do with them what you want. You can throw them away, or you can talk about them as a family after we're done here. But let me share with you a couple of ideas for what it's worth. Here's the first thing I would say. Keep your routine. In other words, go to bed when you should and get up when you should. Don't stay up too late watching something and then sleep in for half a day. Don't do it. It'll depress you. You'll get anxious, but keep your routine. Second thing I would suggest is this. Have a regular time with Jesus during your time of quarantine. Whether you're out of school, whether you're out of work, whatever it might be, have a regular time with Jesus. This looks all kinds of things. Don't be boring with this. This can be running to music. It can be listening to worship. It can be watching this message over and over and over again, as I'm sure many of you will. It can do any of those things. Just spend time with Jesus. Here's the third thing. Ready? Exercise. Exercise. I'm not saying you have to go out there and like do something crazy and like have a heart attack. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but do something to get the blood flowing, get the cardio going. You won't regret it. Do it every day. Check on a neighbor. See how your neighbor's doing. Make sure they're doing all right. I mean, get your eyes off yourself and your own fear and worry and check on a neighbor. Here's another one. Ready? Only check news twice a day. If you live under the constant news headline that comes your way, if you don't smoke, you should start, because you are going to hit full freak out mode. I mean, I'm just telling you, we are not made to take it. I'm just kidding. Don't start smoking. But we're not made to take that kind of pressure. So just check in a couple times a day. Here's one. Limit your escapist behavior. What I mean, Netflix and social media. Limit those times, because they will not add fuel and food to your soul. They're taking. That's where you sit in front of something and just veg. It is not where you go to refuel. So limit that kind of time. And lastly, for heaven's sakes, if you have toilet paper, share with the world that is in desperate need of toilet paper. We're going to make it through this. We're not rattled. God has got a plan for this. And the mountain of God doesn't move. And we're safe. We're on that mountain. So stay the course, and we'll continue to do what God calls us to do. So let's have a word of prayer. Lord, thank you so much for your goodness. Thank you for the awesome opportunity I've had to share with these wonderful people. And I pray now, Lord, that you would meet us in our homes, our cars, our workplaces, wherever we're watching, and you would give us that deep, calm assurance that you got this. And we would grab a hold of your hand, and you would guide us safely across the parking lot, and we would feel secure. In your name, amen.